everybody, XPGamesNL here, and welcome to a new series on the channel, or this is supposed to be a new series anyway. Welcome to FEBuilder Advanced. I figured that this time around I would sit down and create a tutorial for those of you who've been working already with FEBuilder and who've gotten a little bit into everything already. Today I wanted to do a tutorial on a specific topic, mainly the event editor. That is why it's FEBuilder Advanced, because the event editor, if we go to, let's say, the start event of the very first game, then if we take a look at, say, this, oh boy, yeah, there's a lot of shit to go over, what you can see on your screen right now. This is the event editor. These are all of the commands that are built into Fire Emblem 8, and even if we continue, if we go to the patch menu, in the patch menu there's also a lot of patches that do something like add event, and they will add things like, oh shit, it allows you to add some event editor things, like this is a conditional talk, which is like, oh, when you have a certain support you can trigger a talk conversation in the chapter, or there's a map palette switch, which is also kind of fun. Split menu, call supply, bulk selling, change edition. I do not know what this is. Ooh. That is switching between Erica and Ephraim mode. When was this released? I don't know, because if this was released, then I might have created sort of like a some kind of Fire Emblem Echoes kind of split up story style kind of hack, but Prophecy of Flames does not have a does not have a route split. Anyway, there's a lot of extra shit you can add. I won't cover those patches in this series, just so you know. I will only cover the ones that are in the base of the event editor and in base Fire Emblem Builder. So this is the first episode of Fire Emblem Builder Advanced. Again, I want to tell you guys about the fact that this is a tutorial for people who have gotten the hang of the program itself. If you don't, then what you remind me of is an individual that just started their driver's lessons, and they see on the road sign that they can drive, well, at least in Europe that's the case. We have a nice boards, of course, for how fast you can drive. And it's like when you exit a rural area where you were only allowed to go 50 kilometers an hour, and you see a board, you see a road sign, or a road sign that says 80, which basically means you can drive 80 kilometers an hour. But if you look ahead, you can see that the road has a lot of curves in it, a lot of tricky curves, so driving 8 kilometers an hour isn't really a good thing to do, and you'll most likely end up at the side of the road. That is kind of how I view this. If you're one of those people that I just described, someone who thinks they've got the hang of it and want to go all out and want to go drive that 80 kilometers because you got the hang of the car, you got the hang of the speed, and you think, oh shit, I'm going to do it, but instead you forget to look ahead and you crash to the side of the road, then I do not recommend this video series for you. Of course, it might just still be useful to watch it if you ever get to the level in the future. But if you just started FEBuilder, please go to the other videos on my channel. I will mark every single FEBuilder Advanced video with a red border, so that everyone knows that these are the more advanced tutorials, and the ones with the blue-greenish color in the thumbnail, those tutorials are meant for individuals, for people that just start out. So this is FEBuilder Advanced because there's some stuff in FEBuilder that needs a lot more in-depth, and that is a lot harder than the basic stuff. Event editor is part of that, AI is part of that. You'll see in this series. Anyway, with that all out of the way, my little introduction talk. Alright, so let's get into things. As of now, we're going to take a look at the event editor. Today we're going to take a look at something really interesting. We're going to take a look at checks, and we're going to take a look at branches. Now, if you have if you took a look or just looked at stuff like, let's just say, we're going to chapter 1 for an example, and you take a look at end event, you might have noticed that in some places you can see, for an example, this right here. This says checks if alive the character. Very nice English, but the message is clear. Checks if the character is alive. It checks if Gilliam is alive. Then you see this B E Q. I do not have any. I do not understand what that is an abbreviation of, but I do know that this is a evaluation thingy. This is an if statement, and if you know a little bit about programming, if you're a person that works in software or any IT related matter like me, even if you just have only the slightest knowledge about programming, you would know what an if statement is. Now, this wouldn't be FEBuilder Advanced if I went a little bit technical on this. Let me make the screen a little bigger. This, can I control? No, I cannot control scroll. That's too bad. This right here is a if. I hope it's a little. If you all are able to read this, by the way. An if statement is a condition. What happens is when you have an if statement, there's going to always be a true or false. The if statement will basically, what you put in it is supposed to be a calculation, or what you put in it can be anything really that you compare to something else or that you do something with. Inside of an if, you will always return a value that is true or false. So as I said, a comparison is also a true or false. In this particular case, the game will check if the character Gilliam is alive. If the character Gilliam is alive, then he lives. So if we ask ourselves the question, is Gilliam alive? Which is what the check does as well. We can answer that with true or with yes, Gilliam is alive. If Gilliam died in chapter 1 because you suck, then the game asks, is Gilliam alive? And the result is false or no. If that is the case, then something else will happen than when you would answer yes. So what we can do here is, because we have two different answers, and the if gives one of the two back, or compares one of the two with one another and checks it, what will happen is we'll be able to do something different for if Gilliam is alive. So we're able to do something different for the yes, or different for the true, and we're able to do something different for the false. Which means, if Gilliam is alive, we can run the conversation where he lives. If Gilliam is dead, we can run the conversation where Gilliam died. Fire Emblem 8 has a really weird if construction. If you have been in software for a while, and if you're a software veteran, and you take a look at a chapter like this, the final chapter of the Sacred Stones, and you open up the start event, there's this call event that is basically meant for referencing other events, and holy Jesus, look, there is a lot of checks. Here there's a check for every single character in the game. There are multiple if statements being ran, and every single character in the game is being checked on if they're alive, if they're deployed. Oh, and if they're deployed, there's only 2 checks. But there's 2 checks per character, and Sacred Stones' roster is not per se that small. This, in IT, would be considered garbage code, because there's solutions to solve all of this. But this is absolutely bottom of the barrel code. It works, but as you can see, this spans multiple lines. This is such a big monster of an event. It's insane. That aside, that's how complicated if statements can get in Fire Emblem. Don't worry, we're not going into that now. I only wanted to show you how garbage FE8's code can be. So, we're going to click this away, and we're going to go back to the if statement right here. So, as you can see, very nice if statement. We have Gilliam and we have Tana. Perfect. Two different conversations. Gilliam, we check if Gilliam is alive. Then the evaluation will run and it will say... So what the evaluation does here is the game checks if Gilliam is alive. There will be an answer coming from that check. So the game is like, oh yeah, Gilliam is still alive, okay. And it writes down on a sheet of paper, it writes down Gilliam is alive. Technically it writes down true, but it says Gilliam is alive. And then this check will pass that piece of paper down to this evaluation. And it will say, hey, evaluation, this is the state that Gilliam is in. He's dead or he's alive. And the evaluation will just do what's on that, or will look at the paper. It will read and understand what the paper says. And it's like, oh, I have known this. There's protocols for this. If Gilliam was alive, then we should do this. And if he is dead, we should do this. And that is what happens here. This is the evaluation. Now, what's interesting about this evaluation is you can see these two equal signs. If you're not a programmer, these are really hard to understand. There's multiple of these as well. If we take a look at, this is all of the things. If we take, there is multiple. Oh, this is, oh, it's equals. That's what the E and the Q stand for. Hey, you learn to something, everything single time you learn something new. There's two different, there's two different versions of this. Both basically work the same. Only, this one is always the result. So always the result of that check. I cannot click it, but always the result of this check. And the other one, you can also enter something else in the memory slot if you want. It's really technical. I think that if you put something in this memory slot that is permanent, you can make like a, well, if the player plays the chapter once, lets a character die, then they completely screwed. Even if they reset, the game will remember, and you will never ever be able to reset and get that check in true or false. It's, forget about it. I didn't know there were double the things, but there are, when you go to check, there's multiple checks here, as I said, but there is also, when we go to branch, you can see that there is a BEQ, BGE, BGT, BLE, BLT, BNE. There's multiple checks. Now, if you are only interested in stuff like, oh yay, I'm going to check, if you're only interested in checking whether a character is alive or dead, then sure, you can skip ahead in the video. If you're more interested in all of these little evaluations, bear with me. Alright. So, this is really fun because we now have to explain every single one of them. These double equals, or the double equal numbers, what that means is the thing in memory slot X, which can be the result of the check, will be compared to something in memory slot Y. And something in memory slot Y is usually a number. Now that check returns a true or a false, which in programming language is a boolean. A boolean is nothing more than a 1 or a 0. If it is true, so if what comes out of it, if Gilliam is alive, so true or yes, the check returns a 1. If Gilliam is dead, the check returns a 0. If the check is false, it returns a 0. So, if we compare result C to whatever comes out of it, and they are equal, what we will then do is we will jump to the conditional ID 0. Why? Hold up. Then we will jump to conditional ID 0. Else, oh, I think they did it the other way around. So, I do not know if this is true. We'll figure that out along the way. But it might be that Fire Emblem, or for some reason, the roles are reversed. So true is 0 and false is 1. If that is the case, then I've been bamboozled. Anyway, it will compare the result to a number, which is a 0 or a 1, which is true or false, whatever you're checking on. And if 1 equals 1, then we jump to the condition. Otherwise, we will execute the following. So everything underneath. Still with me? Otherwise, revert a little bit back. This one compares things together, and it needs to be the exact value. So if x is a 1 and y is a 1, then we will jump to the conditional ID. If it's not, we'll execute the rest. That is underneath this evaluation eventually. If 2 is in x and if 1 is in y, then they're not equal to one another because 2 isn't 1, basic math. Then what will happen is we'll go to the thing. We'll just jump to the conditional ID. So this is for if the two values exactly match up. This is a bigger equals if memory slot X, the number that comes out of it, or whatever comes out of it, is bigger or equal to whatever is in memory slot Y, then we will jump to the conditional ID. If not, we'll execute the following. So let's say this is 9. 9 is of course bigger than 9 in X and 1 in Y. 9 is bigger than 1, so we'll jump. If we instead fill in 9 is greater or equals 9, we'll also jump. Why? Because, why? We will jump because it's bigger than equals. Now, if you do not want the check or the evaluation to jump on 9, this one, the bigger than, is what you need. If you have 9 in slot X and 9 in slot Y, it will not jump. It will execute the following, because 9 is not bigger than 9. If you have 10 here in X and 9 in Y, then it will jump, because 10 is bigger than 9. Now there's also the reverse. Let's say you want a number, the result, to be smaller than whatever is in slot Y, or equal to whatever is in slot Y. Then you can jump. Otherwise, you execute the following. Now, you might think, bro, what's this all for? I do not want to compare numbers and such. I only want to check if a character is alive or if a character is dead, which is also that you can do both. Why is there a bigger than equals, bigger than, blah, blah, blah? Well, let's say that, for an example, you wish to check the level of a certain unit. Let's say, for an example, you check like the main character of your story, and you want a special chapter to be unlocked at like chapter 20. You can get a chapter 20x, but the main character's level must be bigger than or equal to level 15. If that is the case, then you can use this this evaluation to do exactly that, to calculate that. There's one final evaluation, and that is this one. This evaluation is an evaluation that is not equals. Anything that you put in X will be compared to whatever you put in Y. And if X is like, I don't know, it could be Erica. You could fill in the name Erica. Well, I do not know if that's supported by FEBuilder, but whatever comes out of it can be literally any arbitrary value. Let's say it's like 69. And in memory slot Y, there's 420. 69 is not equal to 420, so we will jump. If we put in 69 in slot X and 69 in slot Y, then we will execute the following. Did I say that right? Oh yeah, I did. Because this one is the reverse of this one. This one compares whatever is equal, and if the values match up, then you jump to the conditional ID. This one does not do that. If they match up, that is not what you want in this case. It's an Uno reverse. This one here you do not want to compare values, or you do not want the values to be the same, and in this one you do. And you might be sitting like, oh, XP, this is so complicated. Why did you explain all of this? This is so hard. I do not understand this. Yeah, that first of all, that's FEBuilder Advanced for you. But at the same time, that is also something that you can learn. But if you're only here to check if characters are alive, or if characters are dead, then fret not. Because I will explain to you, and I'll show an example of whether you can check on a character or if they are dead or if they are alive. It's really cool, by the way. If you just go to the check as well, you can also check on, like, oh, if a character's alive, if they are deployed. You can check if you're in a skirmish or dungeon, if you're in easy mode. You can also check if you're in hard mode, so that you can do hard mode exclusive reinforcements, for an example. That is exciting. That makes your game a lot more interesting. And you can do more checks, number of enemies, number of NPCs. You can check if a flag is set. So let's say a talk conversation is over. What will happen is it will trigger a flag on. I'll talk about flags in another video, but it will trigger it will flick a sort of switch, and the game can look at that switch and say, oh, it has been flicked, so I won't do this, or I will, exactly because that switch has been flicked, I will do something. That is something it can do. It can even get stats. It can even get the luck stat of the active visiting unit. You can kind of make, like, what is it? You can, this is probably for thieves and the like. I think that is for, this is for desert treasure. But you can also make like an inn where, I don't know, a character enters, and depending on if their luck is like 20, the innkeeper will say, oh my god, you look like a lucky fellow. I can give you a lot of gold. You can counter, you can even check gold, which is used for recruiting characters such as Farina or Renak in this game. And there's just a lot of different checks, and as I said, in the patch menu there's another one. There's even one that checks if an item is possessed by all of your characters, and /or if it's in your convoy. So if you don't have an item in your convoy because you missed out on it, you can check if a player has that or if they don't. And you, according to that, can do stuff. It's really fun to take a look at these checks because, yes, you can make original chapters, original enemy layouts, and original map gimmicks. But it might be even more interesting to just take a look at some of these arbitrary checks and use them in some of the most crazy scenarios possible. That is why I recommend you take another look at all of these checks and all of the patches for the checks. And that is it. Do that, please, because it will create some very fun ideas. So, having said all that, we've gone over evaluations, we've gone over what if statements are. Good. We're going to click this away because we won't need it right now. Or well, we have the... Did I put a ranged event, right? Alright, so now that we've covered every single little bit about evaluations and if statements, I'm sorry it took so long because it's very technical. We're going to get into something more interesting. We're going to take a look at the event right here, because I made a cool event for this. If we go to always condition, we have flag conditions. This right here, I think I haven't explained this. This is a range condition. A range condition is a, well, as it says, a range condition. If an enemy unit, a player unit, a green unit enters within this range, this event will execute. The completion flag will turn on after an enemy or player or NPC stops in this range, and then the event cannot be triggered again unless you turn this flag off. Basically, again, the switch principle, if you've missed that, this is a switch that will be turned on, and as long as it's on, you cannot trigger the event again. If the switch gets turned off, you can trigger the event again. So, this is a range event. As you can see, it works like a square, by the way. As you can see, I'm making a square that goes from x1 to y0. That's this. It's this little line here. And from x5 to y2. So that is basically this little line. Within this square, and even on the edges, right here, within this square, the event can be triggered. I put that into a ranged, or into a single tile, because sometimes you want to have single tiles. This is also how desert treasures are created. If we go to like scorched sand, this is how the desert treasures are created. Alright, let's go back to Fall of Renee. Let's click on New Event. I'm making a new event. Space has been allocated. Very, very nice. We're going to Event, and boom, we have an empty event. So now what I want to do is, because we're checking, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to check if a character is alive. I'm going to run a different check. A check of if a character is alive, you can find that in almost every single end event chapter. This is a very good example. Checks if alive Gilliam. BEQ if memory slot result is equal to 0. Then go to conditional 0, 0, which is this one. Else execute following. So he is alive. I had it right. If he's alive, which will be a 1, C will be 1, because C is a variable. C will become 1 if Gilliam is alive, and 1 is not equal to 0. So it will go over here to this conversation. If Gilliam is dead, this becomes a 0. 0 is equal to 0, and it will go over here. That's how you need to see this. And these label things, I'll explain that in a bit. So what we want to do is we're going to go to our empty event, and we're going to check, let me see, let me drag the window here. We're going to check visiting unit, or if active unit. This is a check that checks the unit that currently triggered the event. Who is this? What is their unit number? Or what character are they? So if we click this, what will happen? Okay. So now we run a check, and the game will check. Oh, it asks me to recommend patch. I'd like to enable this patch, because that's a very useful one. If a character is not on the map, the events will keep going. Otherwise, it wouldn't, which would be a bummer. So, the game will check if the active visiting unit is Erica. We're going to go to an evaluation, which is this one. If the unit... We're not going to fill in a conditional ID yet. We're going to do X as result, because that will be the result of this check. Always set this to result when you're comparing with a check. And we're going to compare this to a 0. Because if we do that, what will happen if the result... Wait, what? Hold up, I'm getting confused. It's also confusing me a little bit. I'm going to do this. We're going to come back here in a second. Okay, so if it is 0, we will jump to conditional ID 0, which is if it's not. Otherwise, we do this. We can just, I don't know, give item to active visiting unit. We'll give an item to Erica, and we'll give her, like, I don't know, a vulnerary, because that's always nice. Boom. If Erica is the visiting unit, then we'll give a vulnerary. And if it's not Erica, then we'll give a what shall we do? We'll give a, I don't know, what's 7C? A Hoplon Guard. Perfect. We'll give a Hoplon Guard to the current visiting unit. So, there's something missing here. What we miss in this event is labels. This 0x0 is the ID of a label. See an ID, of course, as or if you studied IT, an ID is nothing more than a name in the case. So we're going to move to the label with the name 0x0. But there is no label called 0x0. Precisely. And that is why we need to add one. We're going to add a label, which is label 00. As you can see, when I type in label at the top, we have goto and label. These are the most important ones. So we're going to go add a standard label, which is 0. And now you can see FEBuilder has this really nice little detail. If it matches up, if there's a label existing, if there's a label matching, or if you have created a different label with a lot of different events, then this will become pink. As to say, oh yeah, this label matches with this line. Perfect. So we only want to give a vulnerary to Erica if Erica visits. And we want to give a Hoplon guard to anyone else that visits. So I'm going to copy and delete. And right now what we have is, if the visiting character is not Erica, then what will happen is we'll go to label ID 00 and we will receive a Hoplon guard. If not, and if it is Erica that visits, or who visits, then we'll get a vulnerary. Great, amazing. Okay, let's go. We'll check it out in FEBuilder, or in Fire Emblem Game Advanced. It has to work, right? If we go to Prologue Fall of Renee, I don't care. Let's skip everything. And it's this little tile right here on the bridge. So I can actually cheat as well. Hold up. There's a cheat for this. You can max out all of the player stats. Oh wow, let's take a look. A vulnerary, oh my god. Hold the phone. What is this? This is blasphemy. This shouldn't be possible. But it should only give Erica a vulnerary if we visit with Erica. And it should give a Hoplon guard to anyone else that visits. And you're right. Because we forgot something. I deliberately didn't mention this. Because I thought it would make for a fun twist. But why have I not... What have I forgotten? That is something that I had to figure out myself at first as well. And it's a little bit sneaky. It's a little bit tricky. Now, if you've already figured it out, congrats. If you haven't, we're going to go to the chapter end event. As you can see, we have a evaluation. We have a condition, a place where Gilliam is alive and where he's dead. 2 different scenarios for the check. There's 2 labels. There's 2 labels. Yes, correct. Why are there 2 labels? If we go back to our event, what will happen is the event will say, checks if Erica visits. If Erica visits, we'll not jump to the conditional ID. If Erica does visit, we'll execute the following. It will execute this line, so we'll give a vulnerary, but it will also execute these lines. It will also go over the label, and it will still give an item. Why is that? Well, that is simple. Because we never tell the computer, hey bro, stop. You've done everything you need to do for that scenario. Go on to the next. Or end the event. We've never done that. We've only said, execute everything that comes after this check. I could place a whole shitload of events here, and it would execute all of that without stopping. Only when you see this line will the event completely stop, and after this there's nothing you can do anymore. What we need to do to solve this is we need to create an extra label, and that label will be placed right over the event end. Why are we doing that? What will happen is we'll jump from this event to the end of the event, because we want to finish something, or we want to, how do I explain that? We want to stop running everything else, and we just want the event to end. Let's say this is a chapter end event, and first we give the rewards for saving the green units with the check, and then we run conversations underneath. Now you put the label at the end of all the possible scenarios. So yeah, Erica can be, if we just go to check if they're alive or dead, Erica can be alive, they can be dead. And there are some other events that might stand completely apart from that, and those will come after this label condition. We'll change this to 1, because we cannot have labels with the same name. We need to have labels with different IDs. This is label condition 1. So, before we are set and we're ready to go, we'll add a goTo, which is this little command right here, a goTo label, and we'll add a goTo conditional ID 1. Make sure they're in the correct order. What will happen here, as you can see, you also have a little bit of, you have indents, which show you, okay, this has no indents, then it executes this is a scenario, and boom, once the indents stop, you have reached a new scenario for the readability of it all. So what happens now is we have an evaluation, we will run this, and then boom, we tell the computer, we tell the ROM, hey, bro, you've done enough, the events, the things I've wanted to happen, you're done, go over here, and end the event. Run whatever is underneath that label. Why do we do that? So that we don't give Erica a Hoplon guard, aside from the vulnerary. The other way around, everything would have worked perfectly as well, but I showed it deliberately the wrong way. I showed Erica receiving 2 items, because you might be tricked here. If, let's say we visited with Seth, they would only receive the Hoplon guard, because we jump from 0 to 0. And you wouldn't receive the vulnerary. And you might think, oh damn, it works perfectly, it works fine, it works as it should. That's also why I give you the tip, whenever you have 2 different scenarios, test on both of them. If there's a character dead or alive, check if the text is okay and the events run properly if the character is alive, and check properly if the character died. Because you might actually run into trouble if you forget to test one of these 2 and everything starts executing and you'll run into a big mess, into a big boom boom, and you do not want that. So check both of these, and this is also a thing that is a principle within software development. You have to check different scenarios, both of them, all of them actually. If you have 20 scenarios, you have to check all of them. If, officially speaking, we were talking about, that's this one. If we were talking about an event like this, I really, 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 really pity the poor dev that had to check all of these. Well, you can deploy multiple characters at once, but I sort of feel bad for the devs that had to check all of this, because we have to check every scenario and if it runs correctly. Alright, so now that I've discussed all of that, it should work perfectly. Let's start the ROM up again. Let's see, we'll go blah 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 blah. And if we take a look, yeah, okay. We need to restart the ROM. Ba 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 ba. And we need to cheat. I'm going to make a little save state here so that we can easily reset. So Erica visits. We get a vulnerary. Only a vulnerary. And if we visit with anyone that is not Erica, say Seth, we will get a Hoplon guard. One last thing I want to check before we finish today's episode. Let's say I visited with Erica, and I can actually cheat with this as well. You can say like, oh, I'm moving again, but I'm not going to do that now. What I wanted to check here is if the event could be triggered again. it couldn't, because there's a completion flag set. If you go to cheat, or no, if you go to event, you can see exactly which flags are on. It says true if they're on, and false if they're off. That will be a thing for the next episode. If it says true, then what will happen is we'll basically not be able to to execute the event again. If it's false, we will. And that is actually all there is to it. If I set this to false, you will be able to execute it again, but we're not going to do that. So, that is all I had to say. This was a very long episode because it's very technical. You can notice that these are some of the longer tutorials out there. That's because they're technical and because they include a lot of information also about the technical side of things, including the event editor. It does a lot with technical stuff. That all being said, I hope this was if you were able to follow this. Let me know if you still have questions down in the comments below. Otherwise, join the Discord where I'll be able to explain things a little bit more in detail. Send me anything you need for help. A last note I also wanted to talk about. I am also running or planning a new series on the channel where I take a look at the works that people in the community have made, and you can be part of that series as well. Send me something you've created. Doesn't need to be a full hack. Can only be something you've worked on for 15 minutes. And I'm going to analyze it, give tips and feedback for you and for the rest of the community. So if you want to make use of my analysis and my technical abilities with FEBuilder because you want something done, or you want to know something, or just because you're curious, please submit a .ups file to the email address. I put it in the description. I'll put it in the comment section. And I'll be able to take a look at everything. And aside from that, as usual, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Be sure to share this video with a friend because it might come in handy for them as well. And yeah, please comment because it boosts everything in the algorithm. And I will see you guys all next time. I hope I haven't completely fried your brain. And I will see you guys all next time. Goodbye.